So, good afternoon, I'm Betty Brown, this is John White, and we figured that we're the two people in the art world with the most boring white bread names, so we might as well work together. And we have been friends for over 30 years. Indeed, John's wife and I were pregnant together, and our children were born a month
Not by me, not for me.
Allegedly. This is what he says now. We're going to do a couple of things, and I want to talk about these two works, but I want to frame the conversation by asking John to tell us a little bit about, who he is and where he's coming from. So, John, you were born in Northern California, weren't you?
Absolutely, San Francisco.
San Francisco, and that would be in the 1960s, right? That's when you were born? So,
is that a test on the reading? Have you read up on me? 5-10-37, by the way. I've been in and out of the hospital. A little bit of a side. I've been in and out of the hospital about 4 or 5 times, and the whole routine at Kaiser now is you sit down and then you go 5-10-37, John White. I don't know if you guys. They always ask. That's the standard question for everything, every shot, every pill that you get. 5-10-37. So that's me. 5-10-37. All right, so what do you want me to do?
So you did not start out as an artist.
No, not at all.
In fact, you worked at a brewery for a while, and then you were a golfer as well.
Right, wanted to be a pro.
And how did the art come into this brewery job?
When I started getting intelligent. I try to make it real brief. I told the story many times, and I try to make it, it's a long story, but it's real, I'll make it short. I was working in the brewery, and I was going nowhere, and I was about 25 or 26, and I was, my dad was a brewmaster, which is the top position in the brewery industry, okay? Like an art master, I guess, I'm not quite sure, but anyway. And so I said, I just can't handle it. And he said, well, let's see, I want you to meet a few people. So he brought some over to the house. And one of the guys said, we have a job opening. We want a white, fairly educated, a good-looking kid who plays golf and knows about the brewery industry. You know what I mean? So I got...
He was not fairly good-looking. He was drop-dead gorgeous.
Anyway, stop it. Anyway, so the guy said, you got the job in February. This was November. He said, I want you to go to an art school and learn how to do single line drawing. Kind of like just something that you'd have to make a schematic, because your job is basically working in the foreign countries, and you take the boss out, you take the brewmaster out, and then you lose at golf. Okay, and then you come back to the thing, and then you introduce our product, which was brewery machinery and things like that, and then you go in and you put the costume on over your thing, and then you kind of like draw floor plans. Okay, not that far removed from this. And so he said, go to an art school. So go on a little bit, because it's a great little story.
It's a wonderful story.
So anyway, so I went out, and I'm driving down to work on a swing shift, and I see a bunch of women around a tree, and a guy there, so I'm asleep there. So I stop, I'm still in the hustling days, okay? And I stopped to kind of go over to find out what the girls were doing, and this guy's asleep, but I said, what's that? And he said, well, that's Giacomo Patri, and he's our teacher, and we're drawing him, and he's sound asleep under the tree. Okay, so then I go back, and I get in the car, and I go out, and I said, Jesus, I said, the guy said that I should know something about drawing. So I open up the yellow pages, and it says, Giacomo Patri, School of Art Fundamentals for the Absolute Beginner. Exactly, it's a fantastic title. So I called him up. And he said, bring your stuff in, bring your portfolio in, and I'll see you tomorrow. So I hang up, okay, I'm going, geez, what the fuck's the portfolio? you can do like a Jon Stewart. Okay, when I go fuck, when I say fuck. Anyway,
that's okay.
So I called some of my girlfriends, and I asked her what her portfolio was, because I knew that she'd collected these big art books, these Abram books. They were coffee table books. I go over to her house, and she brought her friends over, and she's got paper stacked up, and inks and pens and all this kind of stuff. And she said, everybody draw from, give them something, everybody draw something. We're making a portfolio for John White. True story, okay. So I was given a deck of cards, that had a kind of like a little scene with some fishermen on it, and I was, I could trace it and then go underneath it with pen and press it down on the paper and pull it up, and then I could just follow the lines, okay. So, so I had to bring the beer and the pizza, and so it's about 1 or 2 in the morning, everybody's really out of it, you know what I mean, but my portfolio is about that thick. Okay, so so I said, well, what do I do? And she's like, I've got the perfect thing, and she brings out this kind of photo album. The textured, these textured brown, these old brown album covers, Jesus, they're all textured and gorgeous, and put all my stuff in there and put it in and made it really nice. So then I showed up the next morning with Giacomo, went down to the school, and I walk in the classroom, and I say, I'm John White, I talked to you on the phone, and he said, did you bring your portfolio? And I said, yes. So I gave it to him, it was huge, and I gave it to him, and he went, you didn't do this, did you? I'm telling you, under 5 seconds. This guy was good, okay? He's also polio and crippled, so he'd walk with 2 canes. He's sitting up on a top thing, and he said, well, I'll tell you what. I guess I'll finish the story. I haven't always told the story. Any kids here? Okay, so anyway, then I'll let you ask me some more questions in a different way. But anyway, so he said, why don't you sit down and give you a free class for the day? Okay, and he had told me, by the way, to wear some rough clothes. Well, I was wanting to be a golf pro, so I had, alpaca sweater on, some socks, almost how I'm looking now, goddammit. Okay, anyway, but I had probably about $400 or $500 worth of clothes, and that was my rough idea. So I sit down, and I could tell the class was like, who is this guy? They were they'd all had experience, and so I sit down, and it's on a bench, and it's the old-fashioned stuff that was like this, and I sat down, and there was some drawing paper there, and out comes this fantastic-looking model, okay? I usually wait a couple of seconds because something hit me, okay? I've never seen a nude woman up in front, close, staring at me, okay? And so
And she was well endowed.
She was Swedish, and I had a problem. Okay, it's that thing that men get. You know what I mean? So I take that. So I'm going. Oh my God, this is very embarrassing. So I take the drawing board and I put it over this area. I'm like this, and Giacomo's up here on. He's looking at about 15 students. He goes, Mr. White, you can't draw like that. You have to take the thing and put it down. You know what I mean? And I'm going, Jesus Christ, So I finally, I'm thinking of fishing, I'm thinking of everything I can to make it go away. That's what men do, okay? You know what I mean? And so it finally went away, and I was able to bring the thing down, and I did these drawings. And she had these lovely breasts. And so we finished up, and what you did was you took your drawing and put it on the floor. And then everybody got in a circle. I mean, it was a great old-fashioned idea, and it was at an old house in a 3-story mid-Victorian house in San Francisco. And so we all had our drawings down there, and I was down there, and I was really proud of my drawings because I'd gotten her breasts really well. Okay. So they came around to me, and I could hardly wait them to come in. He was talking, and he came around, and there was nothing, he didn't say anything. He had his pointer down there, and he went, like this, and it turned out to be one of his wonderful gestures that I learned later on. He went like this, and he said, does anybody have anything to say about Mr. White's drawings? Okay. And so nobody said anything except this one person who became my friend later on. She said, well, the lines are interesting. Okay, so the drawing basically was the breasts came out and they went down the body and they were out and they became feet. Okay? And I didn't see that. I had no idea. So it was, and I wish I could find the drawing, but I've recreated a couple of those drawings. I did it for Betty in a performance. But literally, the breasts were the whole size of the body. We're recording this, aren't we? Woo! And then at the end of the breasts, I put the toes. Didn't see it. Okay, so that's how I started. Okay, that was my introduction, but I love that situation so much. I mean, everybody there was drawing, and he said, "Would you like to kind of like, are you interested in being an artist or whatever?" And I hadn't given any thought about this. He said, "Well, I'll give you, why don't you come and take for a couple of weeks, I'll give you, some free classes. And I never looked back, and I ended up moving in there, living there, and I ended up teaching there. So I promise the ending of the story. Okay, so I'm teaching, and the way that happened was I was his assistant. This is about the third year there, and sketching was a good, something that was one of our classes at night. And so he said, I want you to get the class started. So I got everybody seated and put their things on down here and all this kind of stuff. And the model came. Guess who the model was? Okay, the Swedish girl. Okay, now this is 3 years later. So I'm there and I'm thinking, well, can you take your legs, kind of put them this way, you know what I mean? And I'm this far away from this lady that I've had this thing 3 years ago. Now I'm like a surgeon. Okay, you know what I mean? And I swear to God, Jim Moss, I'll never forget. I thought he was playing with me, but he wasn't. He said, I've never seen up close really all the way how it's built down in that area. I'm saying he said it more graphically. And so I asked, I said, well, he'd like to see that area. She said, that's fine. Okay, come on up, Mr. White, and help me get like this, And I swear, I'm like that, helping her get a position so that they can draw that area, okay? And I'm saying to myself, good God, you know what I mean? And I could not share. I'm sharing it with you people, and it's getting recorded, yeah. But that was the truth, and it was like really extraordinary. And then a couple months later, somebody was coming through and saw some of my work, and took it down to Otis Art Institute, and they called me back and said, we'd like to have you. Hey, Roland, how you doing, Don? And they had so they said, could you come down? You have a little discrepancy with scholastics. But we like we like your portfolio. By then I knew what a portfolio was. Okay, so then I stayed at Otis for 4 years, and then and I said I never looked back. I never went back to that job guy who sent me to the art school to learn how to do single line drawing. I never even attempted to go back because it was so.
So to summarize, it's all about sex.
All about golf.
Well, you're coming into the. Too bad I wasn't be able to set the context. There's some friends of mine there, and you come in, and the first thing you hear is sex and golf. Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, two amazing LA artists, Roland Reeves and Don Aerosmith. Okay, I'm actually, since we're standing here, going to ask John to talk to you. I mean, first of all, nothing can follow up on the breasts and the crotch shot.
I have not planned that story, but it seems
I'm so
like.
glad
I, however, did plan it to get you guys going. Okay, so I'm going to ask John, since we're standing here, to talk to you about both of these bodies of work. Can you talk about the artificial hatch?
Yeah.
Because that, besides golf, another one of his primary interests is fishing. So this is about.
Well, and just a little step backwards. One of the things when I was an artist living in Venice, one of the no-goes was never to use sports. If you use sports, then you weren't a serious artist, okay? And so I found out something about my personality a couple years later, that when someone says you don't do that, then they do it. And I found out a lot of other artists do the same thing. You hear a no and you go yes, and then you hear a yes and you go no. It's just about being an artist. So I started putting golf courses, drawing golf courses, and using all sorts of things. And then I got into this. These were later on. These were about maybe 6 or 7 years old. I like to fish, and I get out, and I like to freshwater fish, and I get out in the middle of the river, about this deep, and out there throwing and all this kind of stuff. And at the end of the day, I come back into the cabin. I'm with some other guys, and I start drawing a little bit. And I start drawing these kind of things like this, and small drawings. And I took them back to the studio, and I decided that I'd start. I titled them a little later, but things that I kind of saw in the water. You're looking at a stream from an aerial view. You see fish, and you see rocks rolling, and all this kind of stuff. Lots of stuff. It's action. So what you're seeing here is it's called artificial hatch. Actually, the fish are down there somewhere. Okay, they're not in, because I'm an abstract. Basically abstract, so I don't have to show what I'm working from. But this is basically the flow of the river, and then the hatch, which is something that fly fishermen know about, and a lot of other people don't, is all the bug hatch at certain times of the year. And they come out, and the fish just come flying out, and they chomp on them and eat on them, okay?